Coming to you live from deep within a snowy, exhaustingly snowy, radioactive wasteland, we are the survivors of the alt-right Keck apocalypse. The few, the brave, the bitchy, once more wading into battle against the lobster zombie hordes with Rantzerker number 188. We all know what we're doing is wrong and stupid. I'm your host, Allison, and with me is Brian and Karen. All right, and barking in the background.
I'm sorry, Jojo. Lindsay stayed home today because she was feeling really, really sick. She had a terrible migraine. And so she's been bedridden and sleeping
Jojo
all day, and I think she's waking up now, and so Jojo is excited.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was.
He's just happy that she did not stay, like, dead, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I was muted for a second there because Kevin was out of sight and quiet, and that's never good.
Something's happening. What's the dog?
Yeah, no, she's doing something bad, so I had to go look for her. Yeah.
Okay, well, my dog is out in the front playing frisbee with my husband, so we're sort of sorted. Let's begin. I'll start by saying if you wanna help us out to make sure that we can continue to do these shows, we are once again doing our monthly. Speak of the devil, the dog just came in. The monthly fundraiser at feedthebadger.com/support. Although I don't think Scipio really barks a heck of a lot. He hasn't. He seems to have quieted down quite a bit as he gets older.
Yeah.
Kevin will make up for the lack.
Although Scipio does like to sing the song of his people. And
he's like a howler. Well, I mean,
no, not a howler, not a howler, like a whale, like the sounds of whale song.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
it's not like a howl. A howl's like oh.
Yeah.
This is more like a groan. Like a groan to.
Like Borat does. He makes noises like Nibbler the Nibblonian from Futurama. Mm-hmm. And he looks a lot like Nibbler. We could like stick a diaper and a cape on him and like get him like a little third eye and take him out trick or treating.
That sounds like an exceptionally good use of your time. Unlike, well, actually, this article is interesting because it's published in The Guardian. I think that The Guardian has sort of taken a turn for the worse. If this was what was published 12 years ago, it was 12 years ago that this was published.
Yeah.
So everybody knows that feminism is bullshit. Let's be honest. The only people who don't are the ones who aren't particularly on the ball.
The normies that don't really like look into it much.
Yeah, they don't look into it much. They just sort of take it for granted that these people are telling the truth when they talk about history. And so, but everybody else, the feminists, and I've asserted this for a long time because I see that when feminists argue, they always say, "Yeah, you're right, but let me do a little dance of sophistry so we can all pretend you're not."
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Oh yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're right. This is absolutely freaking right. But rape culture, sexist jokes, misogyny, cha-cha-cha, cha-cha-cha, patriarchy, male privilege, cha-cha-cha, cha-cha-cha. Therefore, I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I've already admitted to being wrong.
Okay, Tom Martin is the... he used to go around on camera and ask women in college about their feminist thoughts. You must remember him.
Vaguely.
Did he ask about suffrage? Women's suffrage?
Well, no, I don't know the specific questions. I just recognized the name, and I was like, oh, that's so familiar. And then I started Googling, and I recognize his face. He's a very clean-cut kind of guy who would go around on camera asking, okay, so what do you think about the patriarchy, or whatever? And, oh, it's everywhere. I didn't even realize it until I took gender studies. And he runs sexismbusters.org. at the London School of Economics.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. So,
What's
which
the
is,
general gist?
I think the London School of Economics, I think that's where the woman who came up with preference theory comes from. Mike Buchanan's always citing her work on basically what she found was, after analyzing all the data, is that as an occupation or a field becomes increasingly populated with women, it loses status and monetary value, right, remuneration, because they don't consider economic work, like workforce participation, to be their primary priority. So as more and more women become doctors, right, they participate less in terms of hours, they participate less in terms of specialization, they participate less in terms of labor unions and collective bargaining and all of those things, right? And money isn't their first priority, and the prestige of the field isn't necessarily the first priority, right?
Although
So,
in many cases for a lot of women, so they'll attempt to take these fields and make them more socially prestigious at the same time.
socially prestigious, yes, but not necessarily financially prestigious. And so or they may not participate at all. They'll get an MD and then just won't exploit it. They won't actually get a job as a doctor.
What I've also noticed is that they change the culture of the workplace. So it goes from being a meritocracy to more nepotistic, cliquish, tribalistic, and more focused on like atmosphere, tone. Like, that the office maintain a certain tone.
Well, this is the problem that, I keep seeing when I hear like women who complain about, STEM fields being unwelcoming to them, like the men in the STEM fields don't treat them right. And I'm like, yeah, because they're all fucking autists, right? And you're expecting them to all be Prince Charming. Well, that's not going to happen, right? You're basically doing the equivalent of like walking into a room full of people in wheelchairs and saying, well, all your wheelchairs make me feel uncomfortable. Get rid of them, right? I mean, there's a distinct correlation between maleness, autism, and interest in the dry sciences, so physics and engineering and stuff like that, right?
And also, like the women who used to be in those,
we're also autistic.
We're also autistic. So I mean, if this is a woman who's like in her little cubbyhole, trying to I don't know, calculate the gravitational mass of a massive whatever, and somebody accosts her by entering her space, and she looks at you like a frightened animal, more likely to be on the autistic spectrum, and more
they're literally not sexually interested in you. Probably they're probably more likely to be just blunt and did you get that done? Well, why the fuck not?
Yeah,
and all
women don't like
they're
that.
like, well, that's so rude. And it's like, well, you're a fucking normie, bitch. Get out of the fucking autist fields.
Yeah. Gender normatives, get out. No, not gender normatives.
Normies, get out.
No, neurotypicals.
Neurotypicals, get the fuck out. And just because women so happen to be more often neurotypical, like, yeah, it really does come down to that. Scientifically minded people, men and women, are not incredibly adept at being social, which is unfortunate.
They're not. Well, it isn't unfortunate because, okay, if Alan Turing was like super,
wait till I finish my thought. It's unfortunate because if they were more adept socially, the women who are already in the fields already accept the fact that it's a meritocracy, it's blunt, it's all about results, would be able to stand toe to toe with the women who want to come in and throw their neurotypical weight around. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I'm just saying that
guard their space, but these autistic women they're not as capable of playing the game, shall we say, the neurotypical.
Oh yeah, no, it's they're being led down a fucking primrose path all the time, and it's same with the men. And it's like, you know, like what you have is a situation with, say, someone like Alan Turing, and what was the big complaint about him from all of his coworkers, colleagues, you know, underlings, everything. He's not personable. He's not warm. He doesn't want to socialize. He's just like focused on the work only to the exclusion of everything else, right? Well, you know, that got results, right? And you know, lucky for Alan Turing, at least in the context of, you know, everything having to do with that, right? Lucky for him, because this kind of work, right? The kind of work that you need to be doing in those fields is you need to have a monomaniacal focus on it. You need to basically exclude everything else. You don't have time. You don't have 6 months of like waking hours every fucking year to devote to like pursuing sexual and social relationships. No, you're fucking trying to solve problems, right? And the problems don't involve people. They involve numbers and maths and freaking the laws of physics, right? That's what they involve, right? You can't say, oh, well, you know what? This man is he's got an IQ of 155, right? And he's like a super genius at like building a freaking mechanical brain, okay? And he's going to build a mechanical brain that's going to be able to like decode Enigma, right? Be able to figure out the German Enigma, win us the war, okay? Well, if he was socially inclined at all, he'd be spending half of his time socializing.
Yep. So
Like,
happy. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just sorry, but you're looking at a situation where you're asking these men, James Damore, most awkward fucking person on the planet that I've ever talked to, that I've ever interviewed, right? He's so awkward socially, right? Absolutely fucking brilliant, right? My husband, he doesn't fit in where he works. He's an engineer. He does a lot of coding. He works in like data management and stuff like that, right? And he does a lot of the technical work. He doesn't fit in where he works. They all want to promote him to management, right? All the managers want to promote him to management. Well, management is what he would be best at. And he's like, yeah, I don't want to be a manager, right? Just because I'm sociable,
right,
this doesn't mean I want to be a manager.
Yeah, it's not a comfortable place, yeah.
I'd rather stay in the union, right? And not fit in, right? With these small rabbit-like technical people, right? Who basically look at him and go, oh God, if you punched me, I'd die.
Yeah.
You know, like...
Well...
Because he looks like a biker, and he's very personable.
Yeah. So, I just want to say, first of all, happy Halloween. Enjoy Halloween while we still have it. Because I imagine that Halloween might disappear.
Also, happy birthday, my daughter Rachel.
Oh, happy birthday, Rachel.
Happy birthday, Rachel. Okay, so let me do the things, because we sort of got sidetracked there.
Yeah.
All right, once again, we're once again doing our monthly fundraiser at feedthebadger.com/support. I will probably have to do some arm twisting at the hour, so get those pledges in. Just put it in your URL, feedthebadger.com/support, and think about it. So we need that to make sure that we can continue to bring you this content. And also, if you want to send us a message at any point throughout the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip, and we will read it on air. And that you get the full benefit of avoiding YouTube censorship, and we get the full benefit of the funds that you send. So, feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a message, and feedthebadger.com/support to make sure that we can continue to bring you this show. I am going to have to go AFK for a little bit here. So
What? Why? What's going on?
I have one task that I need to finish. One spoopy Halloween task. So
Alright.
and then I will be back.
All right.
So
I think she needs to get the candy in the bowl.
Are you? Do you have trick-or-treaters coming?
we may indeed. Oh,
Yeah, I might
But,
too. Actually, I mean that might be why JoJo's barking.
Actually,
because
this is a special treat for the supporters. So I'm gonna go do that. And I'll bring. Then I will come back. It won't be very long at all.
all right.
So, but just get this started. Like
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So
it.
we'll start reading it. But one last thing: if you guys send us a super chow through feedthebadger.com/just-a-tip, it will come up in the chat. So you'll see it on the screen if you send it through a super chow. Unless it's like an essay, in which case you just get part of it on the screen, because the actual like display whatever won't show everything. But yeah, just so you know, I will read it out loud and it'll be on the screen as well, and I thank you in advance. Okay, so anyway, let's get into today's article. This is from The Guardian. This is 12 years old, and it is entitled "You Can't Deny It, Gender Studies is Full of Male-Blaming Bias" by Tom Martin. So we have an article that's older than like how long I've been doing this, which is 10 years. That's basically making the case that we've already been making. Anyway, I study the subject and it avoids male issues and justifies attacks against men.
Yeah.
September of 2011. Jonathan Dean reacts dismissively to the news that I am suing the Gender Institute of the London School of Economics, where I was a student. Fear not, male readers. 8 September. I guess that's the name of the another article or something. Let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get this straight. Gender studies is not about women good, men bad. So this is like a year before that, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is. It very much is.
Yeah.
It's about women good, men could be good, but they choose to be bad.
Yeah, so it's worse than like, oh, it's just in their nature. It's like you could be better, but you're choosing not to, which means that this is a, intentional evil. It's willful, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where was I? Martin claims he had the misfortune of being subject to a torrent of anti-male discrimination, Dean writes, adding, quote, Martin alleges that the course material he studied was systematically anti-male, overlooked men's issues, and ignored any research that contested a woman good, men bad line of reasoning. Furthermore, he claims the Gender Institute drummed into the students a simplistic view of women as victims and men as perpetrators. Where have I heard that before?
No, I don't know. As men as a monolithic perpetrator class and women as a monolithic victim class, I have not heard that anywhere.
This is like I don't. There should be a word for it. Like it's like in the Matrix when you.
It's a revolutionary idea.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that this was 12 years ago.
Yeah, well, I know. We started from that premise.
Everybody who researches this stuff knows that it's bullshit. And yet
the gender studies, the whole gender studies narrative, the whole women's studies narrative, the whole feminist narrative is complete crap. And
like all you have to do is ask one simple question. All right, what proves that men have preference for other men?
Yeah.
Because in order for there to be a society in which men benefit at the men at the expense of women, there has to be male preference.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other way. And there is absolutely nothing that proves that.
Not even among gay men.
In other words, the basic premise of feminism has no proof. It actually has ample proof against it.
Disconfirming evidence.
So every time someone says, well, patriarchy theory, you should say citation, because they don't have anything. It is a non-scientific concept.
Yeah, no, you need to basically, we need to start using the terminology patriarchy hypothesis or patriarchy conjecture, right? Yep. And then on top of that, we have to begin to describe it as a wrongful accusation in which men as a collective were summarily Conviction, sentence first, then conviction, then trial.
No, never trial. Like we're not even. It's basically a false accusation that has been presumed true.
Yep.
It's a gigantic false accusation by this society against men that has not just never been proven true, but been proven false. And yet we
over and over and over.
Over and over and over again. And we still perpetuate it. And funnily enough, I mean, we do this. We say to men and boys that they have no place in our society as men and boys. And then these individuals who do it, and if you know what it is, this isn't, you know what, I'm pretty sure that they're not so stupid they can't make the connection between saying to men and boys, yeah, you have no place in society as men and boys, which is what they're doing. No positive masculinity. Yeah. Men's contribution to society is oppressive to women on the whole. Yeah. Men steal from women using society on the whole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Men use society as a means or use rape as a means, as a socially acceptable means to keep women under their control. All of these statements are feminist statements and promoted by feminist academia, feminist influenced government and NGOs and media. Okay. And these individuals who promote these statements, I don't think they're so stupid not to realize the ultimate effect of these statements on men. Because they pretend they're like shocked Pikachu face when men start checking out, when the participation of men, not just in the reproductive economy, but the actual economy is declining hand over fist year after year. Then again, shocked Pikachu. I don't think that they are that stupid. I think they know that that's going to be the result. In fact, I think that they know that all of this is going to drive us over a cliff. They just don't know what to do.
No. I don't think that they know that this is going to drive us over a cliff, because nobody's actually allowed to really talk about, because anytime you talk about something that could actually snap them out of it and go, oh, what the fuck are we doing? We're headed off a cliff, right? They freak out because they are in denial and they are delusional. And the delusion is that a society can be perpetuated and sustainable with only female productivity. And that is the biggest fucking lie of all, right? Like you have the Mary Dailies and the Sally Miller Gerhardts of the world saying, well, men should be, and, the Valerie Solanas, right, saying men should be basically culled or maybe through selective procreation or whatever, right? Maybe we don't have to kill anybody, but we could just just
a little bit of eugenics, just a little,
a little bit,
just sprinkle in some eugenics,
breed men out.
So let you decide when it's time for an abortion and when it's not.
Yeah, and men, we could organize a society where men are only like 10% of the population, and that would be the ideal society, right? That's what, every time I'd see a Hillary freaking supporter wearing the future is female shirt, and I ask them, like, do you know what that actually means? Do you know where that quote arose from, that slogan arose from? It arose from the idea that men should only be 10% of the population, right? That's a Sally Miller Gerhardt freaking sentiment. Yeah. And so they should be reduced to 10% of the population at most, and be basically just used as sperm donors, and women will take care of everything else, because, that'll work, right? That'll definitely work. And I'm just like, no, it's already not working. Like, are you fucking retarded? Like, what is going on? It's already not working. Right?
Indeed.
And we haven't even gotten to the point where we're culling the male population. Right? We still have a population we still have a birth rate that's slightly more than 50% male and slightly less than 50% male overall. So you're still looking at, like, the population is 48, 49% male, and we still can't fucking make it work unless men are heavily invested in making it work.
Yep.
And then they get mad. They get mad, right? Oh, leave women alone. And then when men leave alone, they're like, why aren't you getting married to us and taking care of our babies?
To be fair, it's probably other women, but they got to realize those women who are complaining about men not approaching, not getting married. Well, the loudest voice in the room is women saying, don't approach us, and marriage is slavery.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you want to be a louder voice, and the honest to God truth is the only way to overwhelm the feminist voice now is not through the conservative Harridan voice, which is, oh, men owe us. They owe us to pay for our living. No. You got to actually care at this point. Yeah. There's no, it's not just that men are holding out and saying, no, I'm not going to care until women care. It's that they're in such a state of pain that they won't respond to shaming anymore. That's the problem with shaming, is that you shame people into depression and then they stop responding, or drug abuse or suicide, and they just stop responding. They just curl up, and you cannot shame them more and to get them out of a place that they got into because they were shamed. So any kind of Harridan, conservative wife Harridan crap is not going to work. Any kind of statement based on anything but a sense of concern and compassion for men is not going to get them out of this turtle position. Sorry, ladies. So you cannot shame them by saying, man up, marry, man up, go and approach women, man up, take jobs and stuff. You can't shame people out of depression. It doesn't work.
You can't shame them out of what you, because what were you telling them yesterday? Make room for women in the workplace. Step back, take a step back to make room for women in the public sphere. Don't approach women because it's rude and it upsets us, right? And all of this. And then all of a sudden you're complaining about the results of what you were demanding yesterday.
Conservative women would say, well, we didn't demand that.
Yeah, they
also didn't stand up. What? No. They also didn't stand up against it. Like, this is the honest truth. I can say that it's not going to work. But also, you know what? Men, at this point in time, men deserve to have women who have their back.
Yeah, well, I mean, and they don't owe, right? Like, I think it was in my female hypo-agency video where I basically said, might have been that one, this narrative isn't true of all women, but all women seem to be perfectly willing to tolerate this, right? To tolerate other women perpetuating this narrative. And so it's like the whole single mother thing, right? Well, how are you going to like fix that? Okay. And get women to start making common sense, intelligent choices, reproductive choices, right? That do not make them a burden on other people or the government, right? Or, both, right? Because the government has no money. It's our money. If there are no sensible women,
and there are no consequences
standing up and shaming the women who make those irresponsible choices, right? If all the sensible women who make sensible choices and responsible choices for themselves are engaged in making excuses for the ones who make the irresponsible, oh, well, she had a tough childhood, and oh, well, she just, and we can't really shame her because she's just doing her best. She's doing the best she can. Yeah, no, fuck that. Fuck that. Like, this is what drives me crazy, is even the sensible women aren't willing to actually go that extra step to say that what these other women are doing with their lives and the lives of their children is not okay. I just watched a BuzzFeed video for the first time in forever, right? And he, where he called bitter single mothers raccoons, right? Because apparently they really love BuzzFeed Zerg.
Oh, Zerg. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Zers is actually Zers.
Zers. Sorry, Zers.
Yeah, okay.
And he said he called them raccoons because they love trash men. And he's like, I'm sorry, but if you got 4 kids by 3 different baby daddies, and none of those baby daddies could be ours to stick around, maybe there's something wrong with your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, because unless they all raped you to get you knocked up, right? Those were your decisions. You picked those men.
Yep.
Right? And nobody's willing to actually put it on these women, right? Because as a woman, even if you're raped, you can be on long-term birth control. You can get an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
You can opt for adoption or safe haven abandonment. You don't need to condemn that child to a lifetime of only having a baby mama and not even knowing who baby daddy is.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not that they're being raped, it's that they're picking these men, right? Trash men. They complain about the trash that they roll in. They're raccoons.
Yeah, that's I'm actually very amused by that, the raccoon theory or the raccoon epithet, because it really does get to the meat of the matter. But
they love the trash. They just
have to allow these women.
They don't like the way they smell after they've rolled in
suffer the consequences of their actions. But here's the big problem: it's not just the women suffering the consequences; it's their.
I know, it's their children.
Well, one thing we could try doing is do a hell of a lot more to improve and expand upon the punitive father registry, so that we can identify fathers and give them the option to have custody, or to share custody with the mother, or pay child support. For both. And maybe that would start to get the gears moving in these women's heads, if they know that it's not going to just be really easy to walk away with the kid and money. That they're actually going to have to negotiate with another adult human being.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And honestly, maybe these women want the kid, but they don't want the dad. Even though they find him desirable, they just don't want to have to deal with him in their lives. Why are you creating a kid with a person who you don't want to father that kid?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, where is your common sense? But yeah, that's again, there's a complexity there, because when we talk about women need to be subject to their consequences, now they're creating a child. The child has done nothing wrong, and they're going to have to suffer the results of their mother's shitty behavior.
Yep. Bad choices, and
so this is sort of a wicked problem.
Yep.
Because if I could extract the woman from the scenario and actually have no blowback fall on the child, then that would be the ideal situation. I don't know. You're right. Probably it's just going to have to be shaming the crap out of women, or at least guilting them, making them realize that you are going to be held responsible for the vulnerability of something that's completely reliant on you.
And innocent. Did not choose this.
And did not choose this. And you are going to take responsibility for doing the best that you can, even before that little life exists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a super chat from Senior Sticks. Gives us $2 and says, "The artificial womb will save us. Humans are messy." Thank you, Senior Sticks. And you notice if you send through a super chat, it will send a message out to every chat that we are connected to right now, because I made that happen. So there you go.
That's quite
quite
the talent.
Made the chat more interactive. So
Well,
add a
and
bunch of things.
you integrated it.
I did. I integrated it into the Discord as well as all like the Rumble, because Rumble's always been like a deserted island that wasn't quite connected to the other places, even though we're streaming there. But this kind of brings
Yeah.
Rumble in, so people can see, you know, that we have custom emojis on Rumble that people can use, like the cool Doge. And then people can see it. Maybe they'll be like, "Oh, I want to play with the cool Doge," and so they will follow us on Rumble, because I think Rumble is a good platform that should grow. Although their mobile app needs some work, but I still like
Well,
them.
you know what Viva Fry does. I don't know if any of our listeners know who he is, but he's
I do.
yeah. Viva Fry and Robert Barnes, when they do their streams, they do the first half hour or so on YouTube, Rumble, and Locals, and then they end the stream on YouTube and send everybody the link to Rumble, and then they do the next hour or so on, maybe hour and a half on Rumble and Locals, and then they do an after show where they answer questions for money. $5 gets you an answer to a question on Locals. So they're trying to transition people from YouTube toward Rumble, and Rumble rents at least until the end of the year. I'm not sure whether it's the end of the fiscal year or the end of the year. They're not charging anything for.
There you go.
Rumble rants, I don't think, right? They normally YouTube takes 30%, Rumble takes 20%, but for some reason this year, Rumble pledged to like stop taking Rumble rant money in August or something like that. So, yeah. So they're not taking a commission. At least not on Viva and Barnes, right?
Yeah. All right, yeah.
I don't know whether that's like across the platform, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, so it's like if you want to build up a free speech platform, then maybe consider doing that format.
Yep.
I start out with them on YouTube and I follow them over to Rumble. So
there you go.
And occasionally to Locals.
Should I move? Yeah, I'm not on Local. Oh, I was watching Molyneux on there. I kind of dropped off going to Local. I
don't like its layout, so
yeah, it doesn't have the best UI, but it is where a lot of the people that you're like, whatever happened to so and so, a lot of them are over there. So Locals, Cozy, Rumble, Teal Deer is there, like Coltane is there. So if there are people that you're like, oh, I wonder what happened to this person, they might be over there. I got another super chat from Senior Sticks, and he gives us $2 and says, will the artificial womb draw woman quickly? What do you mean draw a woman quickly? I don't understand the question.
Jeez.
Okay, I don't understand how the artificial womb will solve anything.
I don't think so either. First of all, I don't think it's really reliable technology. Second of all, I think that it's probably gonna be really only good for like very rich men that can afford it. I think that regular men are gonna want to do it the old-fashioned way. There's just a number of issues with that. I think that simply saying artificial womb is like the fix. I don't think it's the fix. I think it's actually a step towards like fucking a Brave New World dystopia, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that most people, when they're contemplating having kids, most people want a co-parent.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I mean, you could say, well, okay, gay men could opt for an artificial womb, but I just don't see, given the sheer complexity of the biological processes going on, I don't see how the technology of the actual womb could be replicated by an artificial womb. I mean, just because they've gestated a goat doesn't mean that
they are actually, what one thing is occurring is the artificial womb or something similar of it is making it so that infant or in utero. What were they? I don't want to say fetuses, but babies who are gestating. They are viable younger and younger now.
Yes, you can. Yeah, that
So
that
now it's
is,
like,
and
now it's like 21 weeks. So the question is, if it does introduce the question, if a woman has a fetus removed during the window of viability, and she decides she doesn't want to be a parent, why can't a man either
take possession of
possession
his
of it?
own DNA? Yes,
Of his own DNA, and pay for the continuing gestation of it?
well, this is what I always ask when these like freaking insane pro-choicers, right? Pro-choice, no restrictions, period, right? I'm like, okay, well, so let's say, and it's all because it's her body, her choice. Okay, so let's say we could pull a Star Trek, okay, and we could beam the baby out, the fetus out, at 6 days gestation, right? And beam it into an artificial womb, and the man will underwrite the entire project and pay for the child, and the woman will owe nothing. The mother will owe nothing to anybody, right? Would you go for that? And they're like, no. Like, I have never had a single fucking feminist pro-choicer say that they would be okay with that. So that tells me it's not about their body. It's not about their choice to be a mother.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the fuck it is about.
The power to deny men.
Or the power to end life.
Yeah.
Or the power to not be bothered. Not, that they can go the rest of their life never having a fleeting thought about, oh, I wonder how my progeny is out there somewhere. No, they'll know exactly where it is. It's in a fucking dumpster. It's in a landfill somewhere.
Yep.
Or, ash is in a fucking medical incinerator.
All right, so let's get some...
it's the ability to play God. Okay, I got a super chow. So thank you. I got a super chow from Great Indoors, who gives us $5 and says, just testing out the super chow pop-up mechanism. Nothing to see here. Badger on. All right.
Well.
Thank you. Yeah, it works. I'm displaying it right now. So I told you, if you want to see your name in big letters on the screen, send a super chow. It'll go right through. I just got another one. Here's another one from Novafan, which I'm also going to put on the screen. For $20. Thank you so much, Novafan. And he says, Republicans, when feminists refuse to be traditional in marriage for selfish reasons, sleep. The same Republicans, when men refuse to get married to feminists to avoid being harmed by the legal system, panic.
Yeah.
Right, thank you, Novafan.
It's unfortunate. And this is not true. Like, there are individual conservatives who will recognize this problem. But for the most part, it seems like the party line is just blame men, like feminists. Okay?
They're afraid of women.
Feminists blame men for constructing society, and conservatives blame men for not constructing society.
Yeah.
And between the two of them, men have no comfortable way of existing. But at least
even Kevin agrees.
At least conservatives, you get the veneer of not being as supposedly being more fiscally responsible, or keeping the government nose out of the economy. The veneer of it, I honestly don't think they really do, but
yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well,
vote men's issues. Always vote men's issues.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I'll get back to the article now. Dean, a former researcher at LSE's Gender Institute, denies everything. Gender studies programs encourage students to acknowledge the limitations of a victim-centered understanding of womanhood. Fine words, but a close analysis of the core text shows that all the old male-blaming biases are still there. Patriarchy theory The idea that men typically dominate women is omnipresent when research shows women tend to boss men interpersonally. Texts highlight misogyny, but never misandry. So he was using misandry 12 years ago. Its anti-male equivalent, despite research finding that women verbalize 4 times more misandry than men do misogyny. It's probably gone up since then, actually. And the core texts highlight violence against women only, despite decades of research showing that women are more likely to initiate domestic violence. Does anyone want to say anything to that, or should I just keep going?
No, it's all. This is all old hat, but
yeah.
But it is nice that this kind of stuff was being published in the Guardian 12 years ago.
Weird. I don't think this guy works for them anymore. Okay, let's get a few things straight, says Dean. The dominant ideas, approaches, and insights of the vast majority of academic disciplines are produced by, for, and about men. There are entrenched gender biases in most fields. So what he's saying is that, like everywhere else in academia, it's for men. So mathematics, that's for men. Geometry, that's for men. Science, that's for men. Right? Those things are
medicine.
Yeah, medicine is for men.
Psychology,
history,
sociology,
literature.
History.
No. Sociology is gender. Well, no, wait. Actually, men dominate most of that, but women, all they get is gender studies. That's all they get. Okay, but anyway, no wonder they can't use their degrees for anything.
You have to remember that this is part of what you remember the show we did with Teal Deer on feminist gnosis.
Yeah, this is the white male system.
What this guy is saying is because these are meritocracies, they are inherently masculine, and it's not wrong. The meritocracy is, which is ironic because the guy would probably turn around and say that any benefits to a meritocracy are, of course, really the result of femaleness somehow. But yeah, he's right. Like, they are masculine spaces because they're focused on merit and outcome, and your ability to affect movement towards your goal, shall we say? That's a masculine space. So he's right. The problem is that he goes from saying this masculine space is anything but of service to society and women. Like, yes, it's a masculine space, but what is the ultimate benefit? Who are the ultimate beneficiaries of all of the activity in this masculine space? Who's the ultimate beneficiary of all of the drones in the termite mound building the frickin' termite mound? The queen and the offspring and the future of the mound. That's the thing. Like, so they stop at the dominant ideas and approaches are masculine. Therefore, women are oppressed by everything else in society because it's based on masculine virtues like meritocracy, which they won't recognize as masculine virtues, but they will do so in order to say that you see how it is. Men constructed society. That's why it excludes women. But men aren't actually responsible for the positives of society existing. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, no, they constructed everything, but except the good bits.
Which were stolen from women somehow. Even though the good bits arise from the meritocracy that they're associating with masculinity in order to argue that they exclude women.
The irritating thing, right? Because meritocracy is considered a masculine value. It's just not considered a positive, right? Just like meritocracy is also now considered under critical race theory to be a white supremacist value, right? And it's basically what they argue is that it's what GitHub argued years ago, right? When they had their big doormat or whatever when you went into their building, and it said meritocracy. That was their motto, meritocracy. And they got rid of it and they threw that away as a motto because all of these feminists and woke people and social justice warriors said meritocracy is a sham, right? There's no such thing as meritocracy. I agree.
We were talking about this earlier.
I agree. There is such a thing as nepotism. There is such a thing as personal bias. There is such a thing as getting a head start.
But not in meritocracy.
Well, no, there is such such a thing within systems that are broadly meritocratic, right?
Yeah, corruption
like
exists. Just like theft exists in capitalist society.
my husband's cousin had a dad with connections, right, who could make a phone call for him to get him his first job, right? My husband did not have a dad who could make a phone call for him because of his connections and get him his first job, right? He had to struggle more. He was born at a different starting line, okay? That's just the way it is, right? And not everything is about the output. Not everything is, sometimes it really isn't all about what you know and what you can do. It's also about who you know and what they are willing to do for you because they know your parents, right? And that's just the way it is. He got his first freaking real job because he texted a friend of his from school whose brother owned a business. And he texted him, and just out of frustration, didn't ask him to make any phone calls. He just texted him and said, what the fuck do I have to do? It's been 9 months. What the fuck do I have to do? Put "will suck your dick" for a fucking job at the top of my resume? Right? And then his friend took it upon himself to call his brother and say, hey, you want to give this guy a shot? Because he's having a real hard time. Because he's got no connections. So there is no such thing as a straight meritocracy. It does not exist. If it exists, the most uncorrupted versions of it exist in the dry sciences, the realm of the autists, okay? But the idea that women are cut out of meritocracies, no, they're not. They just take all of the meritocratic elements of a system and turn it into nepotism, turn it into favoritism, turn it into freaking getting along, social lubrication, all of that stuff. They don't give a shit about productivity, right? Even some of the autistic women I know, I'm like, are you kidding me, bitch? Right? Every time you take 3 days off to go skiing or something, you break a bone and then you're off for like 2 months of paid leave. Right? Can you manage a weekend without breaking a fucking bone doing something stupid?
Well, that's the thing.
And then in a year, you're going to want to go on maternity leave. And you're going to be like, well, I earned it. And it's like, well, yeah, you're talented, you're productive when you're there, right? But that doesn't keep the fucking water running.
Yeah, but ultimately, even though there are counterexamples to meritocracy, the idea that you get your foot in the door, maybe through your contacts, maybe through your family contacts, but at that point you have to actually perform. There is that concept as well.
Yeah,
and overall, okay, just let me finish. Overall, what this guy is arguing is like there's a feminine sphere and a masculine sphere, okay? And the masculine sphere is governed by meritocracy, and logic and outcomes and goals, which he would probably regard as masculine because he's saying that excludes women. And then when women get into these fields, and this goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, they change them. They change them into something that is less functional on the meritocratic axis. And I want to talk about one example that's really close to my heart: the publishing industry. 20, 30, 40 years ago, the publishing industry was dominated by men who were editing and women who were probably more masculine who were editing, and writers who also had more of the meritocratic logic, goals, results kind of attitude. And now it is becoming dominated by people who think that how things are said, the tone, whether or not they're morally correct, and that changes every single goddamn day with every single person, and ultimately just results in a warlord-like free-for-all, king of the mountain death match over who has the most social dominance, thus can enforce their opinion of what is moral. That's what's going on, you see. That there is no external thing that anybody can judge themselves by. So they are always trying to hit this shifting target of being virtuous, And yet the only person who really ends up being most virtuous is the woman who can body slam everybody else around her hardest. You notice that, Karen?
Well, when I was in the industry, it was basically 80% of the fiction publishing industry was female agents, female editors, female publishers, right?
Yes.
And so they're making the decisions as to what gets published. They're the gatekeepers, and then you have a situation where this was, during the sort of the ebook entrepreneurship phase, where you had all these small publishers pop up. And what I found was there were very few small publishers, independent publishers out there who did ebooks and print books that did not try to sell their authors on the idea that this publishing house runs like a family. And so you'd have, oh, I love my publisher. The place is like a family. It's like, and I'm like, oh, fuck, no, not touching that shit with a 10-foot pole. Right? Oh, it's run like a family. No, I need something that's run like a business. Like it wants to make money. And I found one, right? But it's like this idea that, it's all about the feels. It's all about the feels and feeling supported and feeling, like your feelings are being entertained, and, and like you're just very comfortable there. And you can raise a concern about something at any point, and it's like, and they'll always accommodate your feelings. And I was just like, that is the last fucking thing I want. Right. And that is kind of, and if you want to go into like sort of misandry in fiction, particularly in children's books, things like boys are stupid, throw rocks at them, and, all of that. Right. You're looking at this, which I wouldn't mind if there were also books called, Club Gross, Get Rid of Slimy Girls. Right? Like Calvin and Hobbes. Okay, if we were still allowed to have that kind of combative rivalry between boys and girls that goes both ways, but we're not allowed to have that anymore. And so you're looking at a lot of that is decided by the fact that women run the whole show, basically. And so I'm just like, fiction publishing is, I don't need to be there. The whole
No,
thing's
and I think it's
getting
actually
polluted.
gotten worse than that, because now everything is about virtue signaling and being sensitive. And I can see that it really has nothing to do with that. It is like I said, a free-for-all, queen of the mountain. Whoever wins the battle is the one with the most social clout. And the prize is to erase her enemy from the writing sphere or the writing industry. And I've seen this. Like, that's what's happening now. Like, they're canceling women for or other women for some of the most minute transgressions, and they're just kicking them out. And they've turned the entire publishing industry, or they are in the process of turning the entire publishing industry into a battleground over virtue signaling. And it's not really about virtue signaling. I mean, I think if women had more risk tolerance, they would probably just use pickaxes and knives to just eradicate their enemies. That's basically, like, really, virtue signaling and censorship and social ostracization is women's pickaxes and knives. So they go in, these women who are chomping at the bit, grinding for some blood, and they go into an industry and they turn it into a bloodbath. Yeah, it's not a physical bloodbath. I'm using a metaphor. It's a social bloodbath. But that kind of competitive, absolute aggression comes out. And that's what, they get into there, and this is what you see. And whereas in a they talk about how men's spaces are competitive. Yes, but they're very strictly controlled in how they're competitive. Okay, you're not in a cooperative competitive circumstance. You're competing to become the best through a meritocracy. You're not competing to utterly eradicate your rival. To blow her out of the sphere, like out of the world.
Yeah,
put her on the ice floe.
Because the way Gilgamesh knew this with Enkidu, right? And the way even chimpanzee males know, right? You get into a conflict, right? There's one who's the victor and one who loses, right? Then you make amends, because if there's someone who is tough enough to give you a proper fight, right? Well, you actually might want to befriend that person, right? You might want to have that person or that individual as an ally, right? Because they looked at different sports, right? Where there's sort of one-on-one, it's ritual combative sports, right? So boxing and competitive sports, right? Where people are directly competing with each other, tennis and stuff like that. And they found that when you have two men who are competing, right, then after one of them is declared the victor and the other declared the loser, right, they have a much more sincere and warm way of shaking hands or even hugging once the fight is done, right? Whereas with women, it's cold. It's cold and perfunctory. They only have to do it because it's a tradition within male sports. So they go through the motions, right? They do not want to make friends. And that's because women never had to do those things, right? If they were in direct competition with another woman, right? They didn't have any shortage of allies. They had a man.
And that is the real problem when women take over an industry. They have no ability or less ability to control their competition with each other.
Yeah, forget.
They turn the industry into a wasteland of psychological violence. Mm-hmm. And partly it's because they aren't held to a standard of behavior when it comes to how they treat other women and how they treat men. Yeah. And also we live in a society which seems to be convinced that women have nothing to learn from men. Nothing at all. That women are the moral good and men are the fallen ones. And it's like, no, actually, women do. If women want to be part of men's industry, they need to learn how they do it. Like, it's such arrogance to think you can walk into a space and know it better than the people who built it.
Yeah, and demand that it change to suit your sensibilities. And then demand that it change,
and then when it changes and you fuck it all up, blame men again.
Blame the men, yeah.
Jeez, and like, honestly, women, with that example of the female fighter, what they probably want is like, the ability to win by backstabbing, like literally stabbing the other woman after the fight is over. Like a 30-second free for all. If you can, sudden death. If you stab your partner, if you stab your opponent to death, you still win. That would probably satisfy them more.
There's no sportsmanship going on with women, and it's like
value. Like, honestly, there's some reason for this. I think that women's competition is so devastating, and part of the reason is because if women are unable to secure resources, their children die.
Yeah.
So they are the line of defense between their children and starvation. So their competition will be deadly. Okay. Men can have these cooperative, competitive relationships in which they share some sense of common purpose. But for women, that's more difficult because a lot of their activities are individualistic in a lot of ways. They're just on their own, sort of. And so that this kind of level of violence makes sense in the terms of women compete over resources, and that resources are always the most devastating competitions for humans in many ways. And also, when women are engaging in violence, it usually means that the kids are going to be next in line for death. So women have evolved certain psychological things that men don't have. They have the ability to, when violence starts, it seems like they have the ability to just go balls to the wall. And like it like bring everything to bear, every kind of savagery to bear, and also deal with it psychologically better. This is something that they found when they looked at female versus male drone pilots. You take away the risk to self, women deal with the psychological fallouts of dealing violence to others better than men.
Mhm.
They are brutal, and there's reasons for it. And if we don't acknowledge that, we will never be in a situation of perhaps turning that brutality to the benefit of humanity, because every negative is also a positive. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox.
I got a super chat from Paul Grofton. He gives us 100 Thai bots, the BAHTs, the Thai currency. And he says, your coworkers are like your family. You can't choose them either. Thank you, Paul Grofton, for the Thai bots. Bots. I don't know how you say that.
I should probably do the arm twisting since it's on the hour.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so I do have a thank you to give to the Redneck Ram, who puts in $175. So thank you, Redneck Ram.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And if you would like to join the Redneck Ram and the rest of our supporters, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support. Please do take the time to do that and give us $5, $10, $25. Everything helps, and everything is very much appreciated, because ultimately, if you guys don't help us, aren't able to continue to do this work. And this work is, like I've said multiple times, more and more, I'm realizing that we're, as far as I know, the first outlet to connect the lack of recognition of men's issues to a lot of the problems we're seeing in the greater world. So the lack of recognition of men's issues, men's right to their own activities, essentially the fallout of that was Gamergate and Anita Sarkeesian and the takeover of men's activities. Because, well, women should have access to it, and that means women should dominate how the social landscape of those activities is conducted. Or at least, not even all women, just feminist women. And then progressively we see more and more of this, this will be improved by removing the masculine virtues and substituting feminist and feminine own reality into it. And the more we do this, the more we are basically deconstructing what makes our society work. And honestly, I think we're doing it because women don't know what to do with themselves. They're bored. They don't have a sphere anymore, so they're co-opting men's sphere to the destruction of both. So if you would like to make sure that we can continue to talk about these issues, once again, it's down to you. This is a way you can make a difference, so go to feedthebadger.com/support and help us out. I'll do some guilt tripping in like maybe 20 minutes if you guys don't do it. And again, very much appreciated everybody who does help out, because this message matters. This message needs to continue. And till the point at which this whole process, which we recognized 11 years ago, 12 years ago, 30 years ago, this whole process of kicking masculinity out, till people, the pain of it becomes so great that people recognize that we need to face whatever it is that's causing us to be so stupid, face it down, be honest, and solve it. Right? feedthebadger.com/support. Let's do this. Let's get this work done so we can start enjoying a civilization that has a future. Okay. And also, if you want to send us a message, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. All right, let's get some more done.
Let's
I don't
do
think we got
more
much
of
done.
the article. I don't know. Okay. By pretending men's issues are disproportionately focused on, and by implying that there is lots of anti-female bias everywhere, Dean attempts to justify the continuation of attacks on men. and avoidance of men's issues debates, as is standard in the gender studies orthodoxy today. When women's studies become gender studies departments, it signaled a new era of inclusion for men's issues. A rejection of this now is a betrayal of men and equality.
Okay, stop.
Go ahead.
I just want to point something out to the conservatives. In order to present men's sphere as a oppression of women, the existence of men's sphere and men's ways of doing things and men's virtues as oppression of women, they had to embrace this idea of a blank slate when it comes to gender. So in other words, men aren't doing these things because they're men, and not only doing these things because they're men, but doing it overwhelmingly to protect and provide for other people. They're doing it because they artificially want to exclude women from these areas. So this entire narrative relies on a gender neutral proposition. Everything that we have seen from feminism relies on a gender neutral proposition. So all of these radical feminists who are suddenly popping up and turning back and saying, but wait, they are doing so because their own, what they were pushing has now come and bit them in the ass in the form of trans women. You got to realize this. And you're not going to solve the problem by ignoring what women did, what these women did in order to destroy the notion of gender binary, in order to promote the notion of patriarchal oppression.
Yep.
You got one or the other. You got to make a choice.
Right. Yeah, I keep on mentioning this to, like, because I have done a lot of conservative talk radio spots, and I always mention this, like, you know, when people say, well, when did this, you know, start, you know, the trans thing, the gender ideology thing and all of that's like, where did it come from? And I'm like, well, it came from second wave feminists, right? The very people who are complaining now, the very people that we call trans exclusionary radical feminists, right, who are complaining now, they're the ones who actually packed the Pandora's box and then insisted on opening it, right? And letting all this shit loose. And now they don't like the inevitable, predictable, entirely predictable results of what they created.
Well,
right?
it was going on like a long time ago. And was it Gramsci and some of these other people that wrote on this gender queer theory stuff and putting it in schools? That's old. That goes back to the 60s and 70s. So it's not like it's not like it just suddenly came out of nowhere. It's just that, you know, it takes like a generation or so to educate people, and then all of a sudden you're dealing with this mess. So you should have been paying attention back then, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Paying attention to us.
Yeah.
Like we were the first line of defense. We were the first people thrown into the abyss. And not just us in particular, but those researchers and those advocates who were looking at the situation for men as a counter argument to this proposition that everything's gender neutral and every gender difference is a result of patriarchal oppression.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at people like Warren Farrell and Fred Hayward, and Fred Hayward, right? He was in the Red Pill movie, and you know, people like that, right? The old guard, right? The Paul Elams, right? The old guard of the men's movement. And you look at them, they were sounding the alarm back in the 70s and 80s, right? And but the rest of society, basically, I think that they just kind of, well, you know, what's the problem? It's just a few kooky women with some cockamamie ideas in universities.
Also,
right?
These ideas in some ways are very satisfying. We want to save women. We don't want to
Oh,
save,
yeah.
You know, it's like we like this stuff. Well, do you like this stuff that we're seeing now?
Yeah, no, and it's like, well,
we're getting the hangover now.
Oh yeah, no, it's like we were drunk on, you know, like anybody who actually wants to read some really good stuff, right? They could Google Adam Jones effacing the male, and also Adam Jones' The Globe and Mails, which is about the Globe and Mail newspaper, but it's like he changed the male in the title is males in the title is male as in sex, right? And just read those. Just read those things that were written like more than a decade ago, I'm sure. I mean, these are people who have been quietly plugging away at perforating the narrative, right? And actually showing us our own asses, right? Like, okay, we have a pro-female bias, right? And you hear it constantly, women and children, 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 right? And then, somebody has the gall, like Jordan Peterson has the gall to say, well, the reason why women are the way they are is because they didn't evolve as women. They evolved as the mother-child dyad. And everybody loses their fucking mind. Women don't have to have children. Yeah, but the only people who passed on their traits genetically were mothers. Right? The ones who didn't have children, they're evolutionarily irrelevant. Right? None of their daughters inherited their traits because they didn't have any. Right? This is, and we are so wrapped up in this idea of, women are super important and women are super vital and women are super they are so competent and they're is so important to society, but at the same time they're not responsible for anything, right? And you point it out and people are like, what? I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
that women are so vital that if they walk off the job, everything collapses. But they shouldn't be held responsible for everything collapsing if they walk off the job. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I know. And it's like really, or they shouldn't be expected to make responsible decisions. Oh, we can't expect that of them, right? Oh, welfare I don't like it, but it's necessary because these poor women who got knocked up by the knock-up fairy. Who's gonna pay for their children? Yeah, well, maybe they should have thought of that before they freaking opened their legs.
Right. I got some super chows and super chats to recognize, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that really quick. First, I got a super chow from Great Indoors, and he says Halloween is an appropriate time for some feminist howling. Do eat. Well, I'm sorry, I don't have that sound, so I might have to.
If you want, I can get.
Sound. I think he's.
I can. If you want, I can. If you guys want, I can start my dogs up.
Yeah.
Some dog howling.
I can start my dogs howling.
I vote no, but you guys do it.
No. I'll do it right now.
I know you will.
I'll do it right now. Oh. Okay. No, they're not interested.
Okay. Dodged that bullet. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Great Indoors. Sorry, I don't have anything for that. I also got a super chow from Sir Biggles. Sir Biggles bot. And
no, the bot is just added. The bot is added.
Just Sir Biggles. The bot is what?
The bot is added somehow.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
Yeah, when it goes up, he's not saying bot. He's like, you know what?
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, no, I know. It's just Sir Biggles. Yeah. Gives us $50 and says, been listening to you since 2016. Keep up the good work. May your hearts never fail. Well, thank you, Sir Biggles. Really appreciate it. Then I got another one from Ashrun for $5. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That's really nice. Thank you.
And he says, with this 12-year-old article, it's so hard to not see the similarity between current men's rights responses as poor men versus the, quote, this is what men's rights looks like end quote, 10 to 12 years ago. Even now, we have gender studies arguing men's issues are rooted in misogyny. It's ridiculous. Yes. I agree.
It's the more things change, the more they stay the same, and it's like
Except
there's only so much pointing out that you can do. I think there's going to have to be some kind of like actual real world reckoning.
well, there is a real world reckoning happening.
No, not yet.
You mean
yet.
like what? That we're on walking towards World War III?
Well,
That
no, just World War reckoning. I don't even think it's World War III. It's just the end of the petrodollar.
Yeah, no, it's the end of the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency. The end of the petrodollar. 3 different scenarios that could actually escalate into world wars. $33.6 trillion of U.S. debt and growing. You have Justin Trudeau increased the money supply in Canada by 30% over 2020 and 2021. And now he's like, whoa, where's all this inflation coming from? Right? Okay. Yeah. And it's like food is projected, there are projected to be global food shortfalls. And from what I see, nobody's curtailing how much food they waste. Or very few people are curtailing how much food they waste. So it's like, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, like we have these ossified systems of government. Government can never do anything efficiently. The federal government in Canada decided that they were going to do a federal housing program, right? So the federal government was going to get involved in housing development across the country here.
In Canada, yeah.
In Canada. And rents have doubled in the 2 years since Justin Trudeau announced that. And now he's saying, well, the federal government has no business in housing, right? Because, he's like, oh, fuck, I fucked up. And he's like, yeah, no, not my fault. The federal government really has nothing to do with housing. And I'm just like, and then you got all these retards out here going, oh, I'll vote NDP because they want to increase entitlements. And I'm like, where's the fucking money coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just can we stop thinking about money and start thinking about bushels of wheat? Okay? Can we start thinking about bushels of wheat? Because money is just a representation of productivity or product.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just a representation of goods and services. You can print all of the money you want, right? If you're handing people money for free and they're not doing anything, producing anything, labor or product to work for it, to earn it, then what are they going to buy with it? Nothing.
Yeah. People don't seem to like. I had this very brief argument with, I guess, a socialist on Twitter, and he was like, well, they print money and everybody gets a UBI, and I'm like, but that doesn't make people wealthy. What makes people wealthy is the productivity of your neighbor. Is like, if you think about it, yourself. Money is just products, just the ability to get products. But if you don't have products to get, the money is just going to chase fewer and fewer things. The productivity increase of factory workers in like the 18th and 19th century is what elevated people out of poverty, because now you had 100 widgets that you were making 100 widgets a year that you could give or end up putting into the material economy, and your neighbors had access to. Money just facilitates that.
Yeah, no, I remember learning in elementary school, I think it was grade 6, they played us a bunch of radio plays about some teenagers who found themselves stranded on a desert island and they had to build an economy. And their initial economy was solely barter, right? It was just barter, this for that. And then they developed a money system, right? A currency system. And because that just makes it easier, you know, like you don't have to go around with your dead bird saying, you know, do you need a dead bird today? Because I could really use some of those berries you picked, right? Okay, it just improves the efficiency of the economy, right? To have fungible money or fungible currency. But like money is just paper. It's just a representation of what you can purchase with it. And people don't understand that. Oh, just print more money. Yeah, oh yeah. And what are you going to buy with it? Nothing. If the shelves are empty, the shelves are empty.
So I got another super chat. From Albernator Retro, and he says, "Here's 5. Thanks for the content." Thank you. And I think he meant to say content, but I wanted to read it exactly as it's written, because I'm a dick like that. And then I got a super chow, but it's kind of big, so you're not going to see the whole thing. So I'm just putting it up there so you guys can see it, but I'll read it out here. Loquacious primate.
Don't show the image. Don't show the image.
No, I'm not. I can't show the image.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah, that's interesting. Says, wanted to assure Allison that you aren't all screaming into the void when I saw this piece of artwork, which is in the Discord. Sorry, that's the only way you're going to see it. I guess there's a link you guys could potentially, like, type the whole thing in if you're fast enough. By artist Amanda Sage, I thought of you. I don't know her personally or her politics. I think I can tell by looking. But the title refers to a supposedly ancient Indian practice of lifting up skirts to ward off war. While one could see it as a feminist gesture, I found it interesting because it acknowledges the power of the feminine over the social world in a direct and not always comfortable to look at way. All right, thank you, Loquacious.
That's an awfully landscaped punani there. Like that for an ancient Indian woman that's got some seriously modern landscaping going on.
Yeah. Well,
it's
she's
honestly
mowing the
kind
lawn.
of demonic, but you know.
Yeah, it's also kind of demonic and.
Yeah, it's pretty demonic.
Oh, it doesn't look like an orchid with dewy petals.
No, it looks like something. It looks like something puking spider webs.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh.
It's
Okay,
pretty
it's
gross.
not. It is.
Yeah. No.
Okay,
thanks.
let's keep going.
All right.
That would be a no.
Back to the article. Yeah, that's a no from me, dog. Okay. Dean offers up some token men. The likes of Jeff Hearn and Michael Kimmel have paved the way for increasing numbers of men to contribute to academic gender studies. So, which issues do these academics actually discuss? Class and racial inequalities between men, the causes and consequences of male violence, the lived experiences of different kinds of male sexuality, and the ways in which ideas of masculinity influence social and political thought. So discussions of male violence, but not female on male violence. I want to say something to this, because I know that since like Michael Kimmel came up, you'll probably know him, and I know that Allison got into it with the other guy, Michael
Kimmel?
No.
Got in
Jeff Hearn?
No.
At the
Michael
Flood.
Flood. Yes.
Michael. Yes, I've gotten into it.
Yeah, she got into it with Michael Flood, but I
Yeah,
wanted to mention this because
Michael.
With Michael Flood, at one point I showed him like researchers who had replicated his premise. I don't know what to call it, and had found it to actually not play out the way he said it would. And he was like, "Oh, I've never seen this before." I'm like, "You don't pay attention to your own
your critics."
Or not even critics. These people were dyed-in-the-wool pro-flood premise people, but they couldn't make it work. Anyway, continue, Brian.
Well, here's the thing that I wanted to mention, because I think it's related. Obviously, people like Michael Kimmel and other male feminist types that claim to care about men, they will invoke racial differences. So, they'll talk about black men's experiences, and they'll talk about, like, I don't know, Pakistani men or whatever, just not white men.
Gay men and queer men.
Yeah, queer men, gay men, trans women. They basically will intersect and stay away from treating men as a whole, and instead focus on intersections. And this is something that I don't know that people can see what's happening, but when they do that, they are, first of all, taking away the male identity from all those like subgroups of men, because they're not acknowledging them as men. And to sort of further drive this home, because I've talked to people who care about men supposedly, but they don't. They care less about men if those men are white, and more about men if those men are black, for example, which is stupid because they're all men. And if you start playing that game, you will always lose, because this is the game that these people play. This is the intersectional game. Intersectionality exists to erase men from the equation, because they're always the last thing considered. They're always at the bottom of the totem pole. It doesn't matter, right? So I spoke. Well, let me finish. So I watched this Chris Williamson. I like his channel most of the time. He is talking about these issues, and he had a guy on, and they were talking about, like, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't Chris Williamson. It was Nolan, Will Noland. Okay. Who is like this teacher in the UK that, talks about men's issues. I had him on the show once. He lost his job. It was like a while ago. And he had a guy on there, and they were talking about how to beat feminism, right? They were like talking about how to defeat it. And the guy was saying that what we need to do is, it's black men that have to, like, be the bulwark. They have to, like, because they're the canary in the coal mine, right? And I'm like, listening to that, I'm like, all of this is true. Like, obviously, if you want to see what the state of the rest of the world is, look at the black population, especially in the United States, although not exclusively, and see where that is. Look at the fatherlessness, look at the murders, between within the gang population, the teenage pregnancy, the abortion rates, the poverty, all of that stuff. Okay, this is, they take the fathers out, women marry the state, and this is what you get. And the black population is where it started, and obviously I've been saying this for years and years and years and years as the cause. But this guy was saying, all we got to do is get black men on board. But what he doesn't realize is that if you are black and you grow up in or just a minority of any kind, because we're all bombarded with this propaganda, black men, if you tell them here's what's going on, they're going to. The problem is that they have been conditioned to see themselves as black before they see themselves as men. So they're going to they've been conditioned to attribute all of their problems to white supremacy or whatever. You could just move it to a different department, and then you just say, oh, it's Mexicans have this problem, or Latinos have this problem because of racism. Muslim men have this problem because of Islamophobia. Trans women have this problem because of transphobia, etc. So it's all designed to keep you from seeing what's really happening. And so I didn't tell him, obviously, but I put a comment. I said, look, until black men stop seeing themselves as black and see themselves as men, this is never going to change. Never. Because their racial identity, which they have been conditioned, like, over generations repeatedly to see themselves as that first, is the thing that will ensure that they won't be able to work with other men of other races and ethnic backgrounds and sexual orientations to change things. This is by design. They're supposed to keep them apart. This is why black men and there's, like, hostility between the races that's been fermented so that black men and white men and Latino men and Asian men don't work together. And so because they don't see themselves as men, because men they don't have a brotherhood in the same way that women have a sisterhood. They see themselves as individuals more likely, so they're less likely to do that, but they have been conditioned to see themselves through the lens of race. This is the problem. So until there's a way to get black men to stop seeing themselves as black men and see themselves instead as men, and then go to other men and say, hey, are you also having problems with insert male issue here, then what you'll be able to work together. So this is supposed to keep. I think this is designed to keep people apart. This is why I don't like the likes of Jeff Hearn, Michael Kimmel, Michael Flood, and some of these other guys that are out here, saying, "Oh yeah, I care about men, but I care more about men of this type or that type." It's like, no, you either care about them all and you want to deal with all of it and you want to treat it like one big problem, or you don't really care about any, because you're just going to play these. You're going to play these games where you're putting this type. Yeah, you're going to end up playing feminist games, and you will lose because it's been set up that way. So you have to like throw all of it out. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say about that.
Yeah, no, it's like when you remember the old failed term kyriarchy. You guys remember that?
Yeah, that's like the
kyriarchy. Yeah,
the kyriarchy.
And I was like, okay, so how's that different from patriarchy?
Well, it's not. At the end of the day, it's not.
It's intersectional. And I was like, oh, so you took a bowl of lettuce and you called it a salad, patriarchy salad, right? And then you added a few mandarin orange slices, cashews, and sesame seeds, and some grilled chicken, and now it's no longer salad. Like, what? No. The base of the theory, the base of the meal is still the fucking lettuce, right? It's still based on male privilege and female oppression. And until you actually wipe out those, it's, you might as well just take a house with a broken foundation that's sinking, right?
Yep.
And just keep putting more plaster on the cracks in the walls and that soft spot in the floor, just push the TV stand over top of it so that nobody steps on it and falls through the floor, and it's still a good house, right? No, you got to bulldoze the whole fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
And rebuild the foundation.
Exactly.
You got to rebuild the foundation. At least don't build something with a greater weight on it, thinking that that's going to solve the foundation issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing about intersectionality is it does divide men into these groups, and
keeps them fighting each other.
It keeps them fighting each other. It's designed to keep them from working together.
Their victimhood. They identify, and men have a tendency to not want to see an association with vulnerability and their masculinity. Like, let's be honest, they don't. So this is also buying into like just a natural psychological rejection of that connection in men. But yeah, it's if they don't start to realize that what feminists are calling intersectionality is just different manifestations of male disposability.
Yep.
Well, it's often the same manifestation to different degrees, right? Because
look at trans women. Look at trans women. Now, what is the progression here? And I'm not talking about the women who would have always had gender dysphoria throughout history. But the progression is that women took over men's role, and they said that role that men do is a result of oppressing women and excluding them from this activity, not an activity that naturally comes out of masculinity and masculine virtues. Which is not to say that women can't take part, but generally they're more masculine if they do, or masculinely orientated. So they said, no, this isn't these meritocratic fields aren't a manifestation of men's desire to work compete cooperatively over who is able to achieve a goal. And I wanted to say that men to have brotherhood around goals, whereas women have sisterhood around identity. But they want to compete cooperatively towards achieving a goal, right? This is something that comes out of their masculinity. So it's something a part of their identity and their self and their toolkit for dealing with the world. But we can't recognize that. We have to take that away from men and say, no, this is actually the exclusion of women's ways of knowing, it's oppression. And then what comes out of that? Men are left without a recognized identity. You're going to have men who are marginal in whatever way. And I'm not talking about, like, again, the women who would have gender dysphoria, the trans women who exist in every society and throughout history. I'm talking about the trenders. They have been excluded from their own role. They are gender refugees. That is a manifestation of male expendability. And the transphobia against trans women comes from this expectation of conservatives mostly, that men assume a role that they have been shamed out of assuming by feminists.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like-
no, it is the ultimate catch-22. If you're not useful to society, then you need to go pound sand and nobody has to care about you, right? But if you are useful to society in the ways that actually matter, right? That actually create productivity, then you're stealing something from a more deserving woman.
Yeah, you're not expressing the unique thing that as a man, as someone who's masculine, you give to society. You're actually just oppressing women and stealing from them. So in producing something, you're actually stealing. This is the message.
I know, and
This
it's
is the
like
message that men get.
and
This is how
why
they've been treated expendable.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, and this is why I yelled at Michael Kimmel in New York, right? Because they throw around I took issue with the term toxic masculinity. He's like, well, you just don't understand what it means. Maybe you should take a women's studies course. And I was like, okay, but you throw that word around like confetti, like it's completely harmless. If a grown-ass adult with access to the internet needs to take a women's studies course to truly understand what you mean by that, why are you throwing that term around 8-year-old boys? Because I can guarantee you they haven't taken a gender studies program to understand the nuance and that you don't mean anything, mean by it or anything.
Yeah, and all they mean by nuance is they just don't want to take responsibility for the abusiveness of the term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like, nuance.
You can prove the abusiveness of the term because when I did my speech at SFU on toxic femininity, all the fucking feminists lost their freaking minds.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
they're like, how dare you put those two words together?
And yet men have to deal with it. And here's the thing. Like, it's like a person with a freaking baseball bat who hits you in the head. And you're like, you hit me in the head with a baseball bat. And they're like, but there's nuance here. I hit you in the head because I wanted you to do something. It's not because I wanted you to be in pain.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the entire discourse around the so-called nuance of toxic masculinity.
I know. It's really infuriating because, I literally, the women's society at SFU, or the feminist society, they were just so outraged. They, published an open letter condemning my speech right before anybody had even, bothered to find out what I might have been wanting to talk about, right? And it's like, ooh, that's implying that femininity is toxic, and I'm like, oh, but whenever men say that the term toxic masculinity makes them feel like you're saying that masculinity is toxic, right? You're like, oh, pshaw, that's not what we mean by it at all.
Actually, you're a misogynist for even saying so.
Yeah, for even thinking about that. Far be it from a woman. We are morally perfect from implying that that masculinity is toxic. No, what we're saying is that masculinity
has no qualities that aren't toxic.
There you go. That's the perfect, yeah, no. And I'm just like, oh God, I hate this. I hate that we have this narrative in, like I said, I don't mind rivalry. I don't mind, men and women being the Bickersons, right? I don't mind men and women poking fun at each other's foibles, right? Finding fault with each other's faults, right? All of those things. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is the fact that it's so one-sided. You are allowed to bash men and bash them, not just criticize them, but bash them. You're not even allowed. Okay, he's leaving. Oh, good thing I had you here. Otherwise, the mailman wouldn't have moved on.
He would have taken over your entire house.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's what he does. That's why he comes here.
Mm.
But oh, he's not leaving quick enough. He's at the neighbor's house now. But yeah, no, like it's you have a situation where like it's not allowed to go both ways. It's not just about, you know, kind of that poking fun, pointing out flaws, kind of like the Russell Peters brand of comedy where he talks about he does all the different accents, you know, Jamaican, Indian, Chinese, right? Like the Hong Kong accent and all of that, and talks about, you know, like, okay, you want to see something crazy, you know, just have an Indian guy go into a Chinese shop and argue over price, because the Indian guy, he wants to pay zero, and the Chinese guy wants to get every penny out of you that he can, and this is not a relationship that's going to work out, right? And yeah, no. So, I mean, these are truths culturally, and there are truths biologically about men and women. And you can poke fun at all of those things, right? Except you can't. Except it only goes one way, and it's not just joking when feminists do it to men. It's mean.
It is.
It's mean, and it's cruel, and it's debasing, and it's degrading, and it's meant to demoralize. It's not meant to just make people laugh and go, oh yeah, it's funny because it's true. Yeah, no, that's not what it's meant as. It's not meant that way, and I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It's a society-wide slander.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, let's read a little bit more of this article.
All right, let's read. Yeah, let's go back to the article.
How far are we got into?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So anyway, Dean. Oh, this is the last paragraph, I think. Dean is effectively admitting the bias. The gender orthodoxy refuses to mention all those people fighting for equality in the father's rights movement, or all those boys and men enslaved in conscription, or men's shorter life expectancies. I enrolled at LSE's Elite Gender Institute to learn how best to combat discrimination. In a world which verbalizes 4 times more sexism against men than it does against women, it's high time gender studies set a better example, so we might all emulate it.
Those are rookie numbers. 4 times? I think it's probably more like 400 times now.
At this point, yeah, it's 12 years later, and
we've only gone further.
Well, and you know, as well, when you actually look at how people take things, right? How people perceive things. I think the 4 times as much misandry, even back then, right? You have to be really blatantly misandrist in order for it to even register as man-hating, right? Whereas you just have to tell a woman she's pretty, and she will, and that's considered misogyny. Or ask her to smile, right? Or accidentally not close your legs when she sits next to you on the subway, right? Just not notice you're busy texting on your phone. You know, all of these, you know, like, when, in order for something to register as misandry, it has to be a macroaggression, is what I'm saying. And that was the case back then too, right? Mm-hmm. It has to be really blatant. And so I don't think that 4 times as much is a good measure. I don't think that it's.
I wonder how he got
measured. That. Well, yeah. It was probably like from a sociological study or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But you know, like
that problem with one of the problems with feminist false accusation is that it sets the baseline for misandry really high, and the reason why is because they justify intense amounts of misandry, like blaming men for everything that's wrong in society, but not giving them credit for everything that's right.
Yeah,
like
that's they deserve it,
and
right?
they have this whole artifice of unscientific reasoning to justify it. And so they feel like a certain amount. They feel like they get at least 90% misandry free, if that makes sense. Like the first I don't know, how would you define it? The first I don't know, unit measurement of misandry. The first 90 unit measurements of misandry are free because men are responsible for such horrible atrocities against women, which is in itself recognized as misandry. The fact that we even have a narrative justifying treating men like shit because of their alleged treating women like shit.
Yeah, no, and it's
And the
you know
fact that
when you can turn
way
around
that we
and
justify this is using statistics on types of violence that women also engage in against men. Can you guys hear me, or am I not
Yes.
hearing you?
no,
I can
Oh,
hear
well,
you.
what-
Yeah.
Just
Can
give
you
me a
not
second.
hear us? Oh my god.
okay, well,
Great.
what I
can hear
would
you now.
Okay,
Okay.
what I would say is that, you know, when you have an already entrenched field of, you know, alleged study that posits that treating women better than you treat men, caring about their problems more than you care about men's problems, right? Wanting to be nicer to women than you are to men, right? And this is true of both men and women. That having more positive feelings about women than you have about men, right? That this is actually misogyny, because benevolent sexism is indeed a form of misogyny, right? If you can actually turn misandry into a form of misogyny, right? The root cause of misandry is actually misogyny. Misandry is just secondary misogyny, or a byproduct of misogyny, right? When you have that kind of narrative that's already entrenched, not just in academia, but in the media, in any kind of communications field, HR, right? All of these areas, the law, right? All the government, all of these areas. When you have that, then how can you possibly be able to measure the one against the other in any kind of fair way? Because even when you're treating women good, you're treating them bad. And when you're treating men bad, it's just what they deserve because they are bad. It's not man-hating. It's just criticizing bad behavior.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, the bar for misandry has been set so high because misandry is almost like this compulsion that we have.
Yeah.
The fact that we've constructed this entire narrative in which men are to blame for society's woes, but not for society's, excellence and achievements.
Mhm.
It's just, all right. Well, I do want to just tell everyone we are doing our monthly fundraiser. We do need to get that amount funded, or for the month, so that we can continue to do this work. And it's up to you guys to help us out with that. So go to feedthebadger.com/support. We have 1 day left and 2,600 and some to go. So please, if you got it, now is the time to help out. Once again, that's feedthebadger.com/support. I want to also point out that you can send us a message at any time after this show is over. If you enjoyed the content, you just want to give us a tip, you want to do a shout out, you want to tell us we're not screaming into the void, and that you appreciate what we have to do, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. We will endeavor to read your comment at the next reasonable show. All right.
Shoe. Really big shoe.
Really, really big shoe. All right. So, Brian, did you have any final words on this? It's been 12 years
I
and
know.
we're still doing the same thing.
Still doing it. Well, I did get another super chow. So I wanted to shout out to Ashrun for $5. Thank you, Ashrun. And he says, we know the amount of ads we see every day. On average, this is 4,000 to 6,000. It could be an idea to count to amount of misandry a man sees every day by just using social media. I would not be surprised on Instagram if it will ramp up to 50 to 100 anti-male or male-bashing posts per day or more. Imagine the effect it has on men. Thank
Imagine
you,
what-
Astron.
Imagine what if we had a future in which misandry wasn't considered to be socially acceptable. Imagine looking back at this society. Like it hopefully that they will also have solved that whole judging the past harshly, but I'd imagine that this is not going to age well.
No.
No. This is definitely like these people are experiencing. They don't know it yet, but this is sunken cost fallacy in action. Like by the time everything goes to shit, they're gonna look back and say, "What the fuck have I done?" And then, but in the meantime, they'll never. I mean, it's gonna be. It's not easy. It's not easy to admit you're wrong, and it's especially not easy for women to admit that they're wrong.
Yeah, but and the feminists are gonna basically do the equivalent of saying, "Why did you let us do that?"
Yeah, exactly. No, of course.
Now that everything's on fire.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. No, for sure. It's like that. You seen that like TikTok video of the woman who went on a date with a man? She made a little TikTok video and she said all these positive things about him, that he was very polite and nice, and he was handsome and tall. He had everything that she wanted, but she just didn't feel like he had any husband vibes. She wasn't getting husband vibes, so she said, that they're not gonna see each other anymore. She can't see him anymore, and he said okay, and just like left it at that. He's like, all right, bitch, and then she was upset. Like, why didn't he like try to convince me otherwise? Why didn't he fight for me? Yeah, I mean.
Oh yeah, no, my husband got kicked out of. He was living in a co-op with a bunch of freaking university students, like freaking hippie-ish people, and he just his ex had just dumped him, and so there were these two girls who in the house who were interested in him, and they both propositioned him, and he was like, well, I'm not ready to get into a relationship, but I am a hypersexual male, right? And he really is, and so I wouldn't mind some something on the side, right? Friends with benefits. And at one point they even talked him into a threesome with the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that went on until one day he knocks on one of the doors and pokes his head inside and says, "You feel like some company tonight?" And she's like, "No, thanks." So he's like, "Oh, okay." And he goes across the hall and fucks the other one. And that was when he got kicked out of that house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Actually abiding by the rules laid down.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I guess but she said he wasn't husband. Didn't have a husband vibe. So, wasn't it ultimately to her benefit that he was like, "Yeah, no.
Don't waste more time on me."
Yeah. Yeah, don't waste more time on me. I'm gonna move on. I wonder how many women since then he's hopefully he's found a woman who considers him husband material. And isn't gonna play these stupid games.
Yeah, well, or even if he isn't husband material, it's like, okay, so why would you want to stay with a man? If you're looking for a husband, why would you want to stay and waste 6 months or a year or whatever of your valuable youth trying to convert him into husband material? It's like I'm sorry, but even with my husband, right? I don't think that he was husband material in the sense of he was still recovering from the breakup and he was still having a lot of problems, but one of the things that he did tell me was, because I asked him, if she hadn't broken up with you, how long would you have stayed with her? And he was like, "Oh, forever. There's no question about that." And I was like, "Okay, husband material."
Huh.
All right.
Well, there you go. All right.
So did I read that super chat? Oh yeah, I did. No, there's another one. Yeah, I thought there was. Loquacious Primate gives us $5. Thank you, Loquacious Primate, and says, Sorry if that image was hard to look at. It was even more disturbing in person. While I'm not sure the artist thought of it this way, I saw it as an acknowledgement that women can move societies towards or away from war rather than just passive or oppressed victims of masculine war.
Agreed. And now I haven't seen it. I haven't looked at it. I'm going to need you to send me the link.
It's in the Super Chow channel. But yeah, I don't know. I'll drop it in the live show. I'll just make a copy of it, put it in there. So if you go to the live show, like text chat, you should be able to see it now.
Okay. All right. I'm not gonna look yet. Yeah. I need to eat something and.
Sure. Yeah.
I've been warned, but I will come back and look at it later.
Okay.
All right. Let's close this thing out.
Yeah. Okay, so Allison, should I just get in there now, or what? Or do you have to say something else?
No, I just want to remind everyone that we are doing a monthly fundraiser. It's sort of paused a little bit, and we only have 1 day left, so please help us out. Once again, that's feedthebadger.com/support, and I'll leave it at that. So back to you, Brian.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about what we discuss on today's show. There's a link to the original article in the description. Remember, it is 12 years old, and the comments are also very old. So, yeah, check it out yourself. And please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of the Rantzerker, and we will talk to you all in the next. Alice, did you do that intro or no? I don't remember you doing the intro. Maybe I was doing something else.
I did do the intro.
Okay.
She did the intro.
Okay.
I did it perfectly, and you didn't even.
Yeah, I was.
Oh.
I'm over here. I'm in the back room. I'm in the back room doing stuff.
There always has to be something that doesn't go right.
The first time you didn't screw it up, and he wasn't there to witness it.
No, I wasn't.
But I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, thanks guys for coming on the show. We'll talk to you all in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.